Have you ever wondered why someone willingly stays with the person who's tearing their heart to shreds? Why don't they just leave? We're so quick to judge. We say, "That would never happen to me. I'm not stupid." But let me tell you something. This isn't an intelligence issue. It's not a weakness. It's a dark, psychological labyrinth with seemingly no way out. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the shattered psyche of a victim and understanding why fear is so often disguised as love. The biggest mistake we make is believing that abuse starts with a punch to the face. No, it begins much more dangerously. It starts with an excess of love. We psychologists call this love bombing. Imagine you meet someone who seems perfect. They tell you you're the best thing that ever happened to them. They shower you with attention, messages, and grand promises for the future. It feels like someone is gently placing a soft silk blindfold over your eyes. This stage is crucial for the abuser. They create an emotional debt. They build a pedestal for you, making you feel so special that you'll later do anything to get that feeling back. Your brain stores this image of the perfect partner. Then when the first criticism comes, the first pain, your mind doesn't say, "Run away." Your mind says, "He's not really like that. He's just going through a tough time right now. I know who he truly is." At this moment, the trap has sprung. You've bought into a false image and will desperately try to find that phantom again for the rest of the relationship. Before the first toxic word is even uttered, your brain has already handed over all your freedom to the abuser. After the abuser has blinded you with love, the next phase begins: gradual isolation. Imagine a frog in a pot of lukewarm water. If you threw it into boiling water, it would jump out immediately. But we turn up the heat very slowly, degree by degree. The abuser doesn't immediately forbid you from seeing your family. That would alarm you. They do it disguised as protection or as a victim. They don't say, "Don't go to your mom's." They say, "Going to her again? I feel like you're always in such a bad mood when you've been there. It hurts me that you'd rather be there than with me, especially when I try so hard for you." Do you see what's happening here? They turn your freedom into a betrayal of the relationship. To avoid conflict and to keep them from suffering, you withdraw. Your world shrinks until only one person exists within it. And when your world consists of only that one person, they have absolute power to define who you are. In this isolation, the most destructive tool of manipulation is activated: gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse where you're made to doubt your own memory, perception, and sanity. Remember a moment when your partner said something hurtful. When you confront them about it the next day, their response is, "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're just way too sensitive." If someone tells you that once, you'll get angry. If they tell you 1,000 times over years, you start to believe, maybe I really am too sensitive. Maybe my memory is failing me. Here, the vicious cycle closes. Because isolation leaves you with no one to ask, no friends, no witnesses to your reality. The abuser becomes the sole arbiter of truth. You stop trusting your instincts. And a person who no longer trusts their own instincts can no longer defend themselves. You no longer know what's real and what isn't. You're alone in the fog. Imagine your self-esteem as a massive brick wall. An abuser doesn't tear down that wall with a wrecking ball in a single hit. No. They remove a tiny grain of sand every day. It starts with so-called microaggressions. These are those small, toxic remarks disguised as jokes, a dismissive glance at your weight, a sigh of contempt when you state your opinion, or a subtle dig about your work. It feels insignificant, but little by little, it digs deep into your soul. The goal? For you to feel worthless. For you to believe, "I'm lucky this person even stays with me. Because as incapable, ugly, or stupid as I am, no one else would want me." That's the essence of the invisible trap. You don't stay because you're physically chained. You stay because your mind has been convinced that you're worthless outside of this relationship. And this is where it gets almost eerie, because science explains why letting go seems almost impossible. It's the chemistry in your brain. It's called intermittent reinforcement. It works exactly like a slot machine. If a machine never pays out, you walk away after 5 minutes. But if it occasionally, completely randomly, spits out a coin, you'll sit there for hours, obsessed with the hope of the next win. In an abusive relationship, that win is the reconciliation. After hell comes paradise. The abuser begs on their knees for forgiveness, brings flowers, or swears they'll change. In that moment, your brain floods with massive amounts of dopamine and oxytocin. It's a biological high, a moment of extreme relief. Your brain no longer distinguishes between love and this high. You become addicted, not to the person, but to the relief after the pain. You're not a victim of a lack of intelligence. You're a biological prisoner of your own reward system. You're waiting for the next coin, while the machine is destroying you from the inside. Eventually, you reach a point where you stop fighting. Not because you're weak, but because your brain has learned that resistance is futile. We call this learned helplessness. Think of a young elephant in the circus. When it was small, it was tied to a stake with a heavy chain. It struggled, pulled, and cried, but it couldn't escape. Years later, that elephant is huge and strong. The chain has been replaced with a thin rope that it could snap with a single tug. But it doesn't even try. Why? Because deep down it learned that escape is impossible. In the world of abuse, it's the same. The mental chain is stronger than any physical wall. But how does a person endure the unbearable pain of living with a monster? They split their mind. This is cognitive dissonance. It's like having two versions of the same person in your head. There's the monster who screams at you and humiliates you, and then there's the angel from the beginning of the relationship who is actually good. To avoid going insane, you make a desperate decision. You believe the angel is the true person, and the monster is just a slip-up. You tell yourself, he's just really stressed at work, or I shouldn't have provoked him. You justify the inexcusable, just to avoid having to accept the cruel thought that the person you love is actually the one destroying you. This is the stage of psychological freezing. The cage door might already be wide open, but you sit motionless, trapped in a reality your mind has twisted for itself to survive. If you recognize yourself in these words, then take a deep breath. You're not in a dead end, you're in a tunnel, and every tunnel has an end. But to get out, you need to know which way to go. The first and most important step is cutting off contact. Contact zero. Think of it as withdrawing from a drug. Your brain needs silence to reduce the stress hormone cortisol. This means no messages, no calls, no secretly checking Instagram. This protective wall isn't a punishment for the other person. It's a lifesaver for yourself. At the same time, you need to reclaim your autonomy, even in the smallest things. Today, decide for yourself what you want to eat without asking anyone. Choose the color of your clothes simply because you like it. These tiny steps are like physical therapy for your soul. You're learning to stand on your own 2 feet again. And to everyone watching who loves someone stuck in this hell, please don't judge. If you say, just leave him, you're only pushing them deeper into his arms. Instead, be a safe harbor. Say, I don't understand everything you're going through, but I'm here when you're ready to jump. I'll catch you. You listening to this, you're not broken. You're wounded, and wounds can heal. You weren't weak for staying. You were incredibly strong for surviving a psychological war that hardly anyone understands. Your story doesn't end with this pain. Your true life begins right at this moment, when you decide enough is enough. Type the word freedom in the comments. Let it be your declaration of war against fear. From today on, your life belongs entirely to you again. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next video.